Hello everyone, welcome to my little tutorial on how to make this little snippet roll, the one that I showed you before that I've got on a reel. Okay, so first of all we start with a strip of cotton fabric. This is what I used as my base, and what you do, you measure how wide the gap is in between your two pieces of your reel like this, and measure it, and mine is 2 inches. I know that because I measured it earlier. So then I tore a strip of fabric, and you just cut it to the length that you want, and that's, I'm sure you could use all sorts of different things for this base, but this is what I used anyway. Right, so now we've got our piece of fabric all together. I've got some bits and pieces here, little snippets of fabric which I'm now going to use to start decorating. Right, so what I do, I leave probably 6 to 8 inches. This is the bit that's going to go around the reel when you attach it to the reel. So moving down a little bit, I start pinning out. Now because I'm a sewer, I'm not very keen on using glue on fabric, so I use pins. You can use glue, that's fine. So I'm just going to be pinning little bits and pieces to start with, just laying them out to see how they look. And on the first layer you can be using all sorts of bits and pieces that you're not kind of 100% fond of, not your favourite pieces. So there we go, we're just going along, putting bits in, and I've got some bits here that like this, that piece of a dress I'm going to fit in here somewhere, I think, and add a bit of embroidery anglaise there. Yeah, we just cut that up a little bit smaller, because this is a bit of a smaller project. You can use lots of tiny pieces. Don't worry too much if you're going to, if you've got a gap or two. It doesn't matter, because we're going to go over it again. So just continue like this. Just little strips. And don't worry if it goes over the edges, because again, we can neaten that up afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to go and continue doing that for the moment. Okay, so I've gone away and I've laid up a little bit more. As you can see, I've just got these little bits that I've layered over each other, and keep layering them up, just making them look pretty. Everybody's will be different. That's what makes them special, I think. You can even, cut up little bits, a little bit of shot silk here that I'm just going to fill that gap in with. There we go. Like that. And just pin it in. Maybe take that one out and that one out. Just twist it a little. There we go. Put that one there. And pin it. There we go, another piece like that. So when you've got the required amount all glued or pinned, we now have to go away and sew it, and that's what I'm going to do now. We'll see what it looks like when I come back. Okay, well, I've just finished sewing the first couple of bits. This is the piece you saw me pin. I've sewn this down, and I've gone on and I've pinned, and I've done, that's where that piece finished. I've gone on and I've done a bit more. I think by chunking it up into smaller pieces, it makes it easier to handle. And then I've gone on to pin another piece. So that piece there is now waiting to be stitched down. Now I stitch it down and I start here like this, and I'm stitching this end and flattening and adjusting it as I go. Then I go to the middle and all the way down to this is where it ended, and this piece here. And I keep on stretching it, or not stretching it, but flattening it out and adjusting it as I go. And then it's all, I've got to neaten these up a bit in a minute, and then it's all nice and firmly tacked down. I'm just going to go ahead now and I'm just going to stitch this piece, which was the last piece that I've just done, and then I'm going to just snip off the sewing threads, and then we'll be back for a bit more. Okay, well that's all the stitching of the first layer done, and that's looking okay. And I'm tidying up these bits of loose threads, and I'm going to trim any bits off like this, neaten it up a bit. And here's a couple more bits. There we go. Just trim it in, tidying up the edges. There we go. And I do it from the wrong side because I find it easier to see the bits that are overhanging. Doesn't have to be too perfect, but I think that's probably, yeah, that's okay for that. Right, okay, so we're now ready to start putting the next layer on. We start now by putting on the second layer, and I usually use these lovely little pieces of sheer tulle. This is the one that I'm particularly fond of. It's got little glittery sequiny things in it, and it really just tones down the bright colours underneath. So again, I'm pinning. You can use a fabric adhesive, one of those that are temporary if you want, the low tack, and I'm just now going to overlay stuff. There we go. And again, we'll trim this off afterwards if it's too big. So you can see I'm just layering bits of lace here, there and everywhere at the moment. I'm going to find a piece for there in a minute, or maybe I won't, I don't know. Just put that in there. And I'm going to continue like this for probably about for about 12 inches, and that'll be enough to work with my machine with all the pins. Perhaps another bit of that there. And there we go. What I'm going to do now I'm going to sew that. Okay. Okay, now I have stitched down that second layer, as you can see, all stitched down, and I've gone over it a couple of times to hook down all the other pieces to make sure they're nice and flat. And what I'm doing now, I'm just putting in some little extra bits where I feel that it's a bit plain. So I've got these little daisies, and I'm putting them just in various places just to make it a little bit more 3D, if you like. Yeah, and I think I could do with one maybe here like this. There we go. I've got another one here, look, and some more along here. There we go. And when I'm now going to go and stitch these, and I will do a few stitches backwards and forwards over them to make sure they're nice and flat. Then when I've finished stitching, I am going to go and neaten these edges like I did before. I finished sewing on all the bits of lace, as you can see, and I've done these, and I did a little bit of backwards and forwards machine stitching to hold them down. I'm now trimming the back, so I'm just tidying up all the edges from the back. There we go. A bit there needs to come off, I think. And I've tidied up all the loose threads, and I've kind of left with this. Right, and as you can see from the back, because you can't really see it very much on the front, I did quite a little bit of backwards and forwards, just going all the way up and back. It makes it really nice and flat and held down. Right, the next bit now is I'm going to put an edging on. Now, as you can see on this one, this is the one I did before, I had a nice little bit of edging running along here. Unfortunately, I haven't got anything thin enough. So what I'm having to do, what I found, and I quite like the edge on this, if I can find the end. There we go. So I'm going to use this bit here. So I have started, a bit of a tedious task, but not too long. I've started snipping it back. So I'm just going to finish that. So, there we are, nearly done. Right, so that's what I'm going to use as an edging, and it's going to sit. What I shall do is put it right up to the edge, just abutting the edge like that. Now I'm going to go and sew that now. Well, that's the edging sewn on. As you can see, it's worked quite well. I've cut down that big piece, and I've just used the edging, and I've trimmed back and neatened up any bits that were stuck over the top here. And as you can see, I've gone over it twice. Make it nice and firm and flat. And there we go. I'm now left with this, which I'm now going to think about embellishing a bit more. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make some little stacks. Now this is some that I've made for other projects. This is a little blue one, and the fabrics are stacked up and secured with a button. And this is one that I've made. This is quite a lot. These are quite large, chunky ones for different projects. The nice glittery stone, vintage bead actually, and lots of lace. Now on this roll, they've been quite small. There's the little stacks there. So 1 or 2 layers of fabric and a daisy, and sometimes a bead. And this is what I'm now going to start doing for this roll. So to make the clusters, I just cut up squares. And here's a couple I've started making. These have got to be, I'm now going to fray out the edges on these, like a nice soft edge on them. So we fray out the edges. So there we go, that's what I do. So I take, there's a piece of silk, shot silk, and maybe a square of the rose. And then we'll have a daisy, and we'll top it off with the bead, with a button rather. So we just sew those together and fray them out for a nice soft edge. What we have on here, there we go, that's a good one that you can see. Nice soft edge on it. And also at this stage, I'm going to have to go away and make those. This is when I think about putting the tie on. So I've cut a piece of organza ribbon. This one is about 2 foot long. And fold it in half, and it's going to go there, like that. And I'm going to put another piece of edging over it. So it's going to be secured in like that, and I shall pin it. And in a moment I'll sew that. So I'm going to go away now and embellish. Oh yes, and I forgot, I'm going to use some little bows as well, and anything like that. And I have some beaded, pearl beaded lace, which I'm going to put in like this. You can see that there, I think you can see it just about. Right, I've just finished stitching on my embellishments. I have some buttons, and like I said, some stacks or clusters and satin bows, and here's the pearl ribbon lace on there. And I've gone all the way along. It's taken me a little while. It's all hand stitched on, and there we go. And now I'm left with this. There we are, and to the end. Okay, all sorts. You can use whatever you have to embellish it, and of course you can use whatever colours you like. Oh yes, and there's the ribbon stitched on, all nice and neat. Right, we're nearly there. What we need to do now is to cover and neaten in the back. So I have got in my stash some 2-inch wide lace, and what I'm going to go and do now is stitch that like so onto the back, and we're nearly there. Now if you have things that are quite close like this to the edge of the strip, when you're stitching, just move it out the way as you go. I've just finished the sewing on the back, and there we are, all stitched on, just right up to the edges, and it really fits quite nicely. So that's really neatened up that back. There we go. So you have one snippet roll waiting to go onto a reel. There we are. So, now unfortunately I don't have an empty reel at the moment, but I will show you the other one and how I fixed it on. It's really very easy. All I did was with this piece, okay, I just glued it with some fabric glue there, obviously let it dry, and then you just roll it on. There we go. So that was the one I did earlier. There. There we are. There's that one. So when I get a roll, there we are, one last look. Like I said, it's using up bits and pieces. You don't need a lot of materials. Use any colourway that you want, and any buttons, any charms. There we are. And that was the back. Just a piece of crocheted lace. Okay, well that's that. I hope you have a go, and I hope that's helped you. And if I've missed anything and you want to know anything, well, you can find me on Facebook and you can message me there. Okay, thank you for looking. Bye for now.